Let us not assume that everyone is well aware of the coming of that sacred ancestral melanin encoded first Genesis, mother of humanity.
Scientific research indicates that all living humans inherit their mitochondrial DNA from a maternal ancestor who lived around 150,000 to 200,000 years ago in Africa within a fertile green environment filled with vegetation and solar radiation. As the melanin encodes give us that indication, the birthplace, the cradle of humankind. Mitochondria are often called the powerhouse of the cell because they generate the primary energy currency used throughout the brain and the body. Glucose, born from the green pigment of plants during the process of photosynthesis. Glucose stands as the primary and most efficient fuel for mitochondria, the powerhouse of all living cells. Our brains, commanding 20% of the body's energy, rely almost exclusively on glucose to spark the ATP that fuels thought and life itself, carried through the mitochondria, passed down from the mitochondrial mother in an unbroken transmission from mothers to daughters all the way until today, connecting us to each other, connecting every cell in our body to the sun's radiant energy consumed within our first Genesis, tree of life consciousness, bonding masculine and feminine energy in divine union.
We had better put every ounce of our whole life energy into recovering divine order, seeking to connect with that tree of life culture, planting more trees, creating more gardens, eating more raw and living fruits, vegetable seeds, nuts, herbs, and spice, connecting with a greater sense of divine union, masculine and feminine energy, and putting our holistic living focus on going forward to multiply in our own image and divine of our own kind, within our own green earth solar conscious state of mind. We're talking about actually receiving that first Genesis consciousness. You see, there's a prophecy, 9/18/2027, and we have a period of time by prophetic revealing to connect holistically within divine, social, economic, family, communal order for the survival of the sacred ancestral spirit presence, man, he, and she.
High Priest Kwatamani, Supreme Soothsayer, Soul Seer, Spiritual Healer and Revealer, Chief Elder of the Kwatamani First Genesis Tribe, the oldest, longest sustained, raw and living, plant fuel consuming, family community order known. Well over half a century and still going strong in the tropical rainforest.
Yeah, this piece here, well, there's a love song, syncopated and orchestrated for you to step on, for the big, bad, and bold who think they're full grown, foot loose and fancy free with a mind of their own, for the bad mama jammers who stone cold to the bone, doing the wrong thing right and the right thing wrong. Take a few minutes, groove with this groove, and let this smooth love song take you to school where truth lyrics are the golden rule.
In the first Genesis, beginning of the beginning, is the divine order of you, man, human of the tree of life. Know for a fact that you came holistically, he and she, humanity, embodying the whole soul essence of life and supreme love, mentally, physically, and spiritually, emerging out of the most supreme seen and unseen essence of masculine and feminine energy, who spoke loud and clear, let us make man in our own image, he and she in our own likeness, of our own kind, of green earth solar conscious state of mind. And the sacred ancestral communal principles of Maat would be the sleeper, allowing man, he and she, to be the unified keeper of divine order, divine consumption, fruits of the tree of life, raw, living fruits, vegetables, seeds, nuts, herbs, spice, divine union, masculine and feminine energy, he and she, going forward to multiply divine order into every offspring and vibration of the generation next through divine social, economic, family, communal order. You see, life is for the living, for giving to the generation next and next and next. We're talking divinity, the triple nine trinity, brain, body, and spirit. Prophecy, AD 2027. Look, listen, learn, discern. Don't fear it. The time has come for man, he, and she to use mature reasonings. We are not talking about belief system. You see, any and every being can believe whatever he or she wants to believe or is master programmed to believe, especially since that belief system fuels the overbloated ego, self-deification, or any of those factors that one want to use to glorify their vague and empty existence of self-righteousness. We are talking about the holistic living expression of universal order. No theory, facts. We have a problem to resolve, and it's going to take all of the brain power that we can manifest to solve this complex problem that continues to breed, seed, and feed a hunting, herding, warring, blood and flesh consuming, predatory nature, where the survival of the fittest syndrome fuels self-deification as a way of life. Here is what we know. We know that man, he and she, is birthed from the womb of the mother, and that she is the first teacher, and her womb is the first classroom, and that if we do not reach her with the energy of divine order, there will be no divine order, because the nature of energy that is ejaculated into she, mentally, physically, and spiritually, will be exactly what she will breed, seed, and feed into the generation next. It is not to ignore her conscious reasoning. It's not to ignore her intelligence. It is just a fact. She is not the end-all of our existence. Neither is he. It requires the divine union of masculine and feminine energy, he and she, to perpetuate divine order.
Quote, according to science, man, he and she is considered as a primate. According to this scientific order, man, he and she is considered the highest order of primates. Within their natural habitat, primates live in the tropics and subtropics and eat leaves and fruits. Primates are considered arboreal, which means that they live from and among trees. The root word of arboreal is arbor, which is commonly defined as a shelter in a garden formed of trees. Thus, the concept of the tree of life is both a figurative and literal reference to the life presence of man, he and she. End of quote. Page 42, from The Holistic Living Truth About Supreme Love, Resurrecting Divine Spirit Consciousness by High Priest Kwatamani.
There's been a break in our way of consuming the fuel, the energies. And we have become the energies that we consume. And the energies that we consume have become us, manifesting a consciousness of this order that would feed, seed, and breed a second Genesis, macho, masculine consciousness of self-deification. Know for a fact that there are populations who were disconnected from consuming of the optimum fuel of the tree of life culture. And such a disconnection would definitely lead to a different kind of mental development, psychological development, producing a hunting, herding, warlike, scavenger, predator nature of consciousness.
Man, he and she, is a product of his or her environment. We cannot live without a living environment. We cannot exist without honoring Mother Earth, the feminine energies that nurture our living presence. So just imagine the cold, freezing, icy landscape outside of the sacred garden culture. Imagine the hot, dry, arid, burning sands outside of the sacred garden culture. Imagine the urban blight. Imagine the enslavement scenarios. Imagine the colonial impoverishment. This breeds a consciousness of scarcity. Every resource, from food to shelter, is a prize to be won against immense odds. And who dominates and controls and rules to decide who gets that prize? The predator, the scavenger, hunter, herder, warlord.
We're talking about a merciless, blood-spilling instigator of sexual violation, violence, war, and crime as a way of life.
Quote, when one reasons with the idea of consumption, it becomes clear that one is a product of one's environment, mentally, physically, and spiritually. The origin of man, he and she, upon the planet Earth is the sacred garden culture of the tree of life. This origin is regardless of one's present state of being, whether one is blonde or bald or natty dread. The origin of man, he and she, remains the same, whether one is deeply tanned to some level or degree, or whether one is not characterized as tanned. That is, high-profile melanination or low-profile melanination. It does not matter if one lives in Northern Europe, Alaska, Asia, the Americas, or Central Africa. The origin of man, he and she, began within the sacred garden culture of the tree of life. Page 48, taken from the Holistic Living Truth About Supreme Love, Resurrecting Divine Spirit Consciousness by High Priest Kwatamani.
There has been a mutation and degeneration from the original holistic living blueprint of humanity.
And he who claims the swiftest ability to kill, maim, conquer, destroy, enslave, rape, declares the might and the right to possess the prize, the natural resources, the environmental wealth, the land, the people. That is the monotheistic macho male consciousness.
That's right. There has been a breakaway from our garden culture, tree of life environment, where higher peace consciousness is a natural and innate way of life. Remember this, two different natures of energy, the unified wholeness of divine order, or the divisive, self-centered, individualistic nature of disorder.
From this totally opposite consumption pattern, a culture, that is the deaf consumption culture, would manifest, wherein consuming of depleted, devitalized, and malnourished food substances caused a weakening of the whole life presence of man, he and she, a weakening of the divine spirit presence. The weak and feeble spirit presence generates weak and feeble signals that feed a malnourished brain. Lost and astray thoughts and reasoning transmit from a malnourished brain into what is called the mind of thought. This mind field is triggered and detonated by emotional word sounds, greed, and bloodthirsty vibrations of control, domination, and possession of others and the belongings of others. End of quote. Page 8, from the Holistic Living Truth About Supreme Love, Resurrecting Divine Spirit Consciousness by High Priest Kwatamani.
We have a lot of detoxing ahead. When we think of whole life recovery, our primary focus must be on the fuel that is required to feed the brain so that it would have enough power thrusts to be able to solve these conflict-oriented problems during these days and times of sacred ancestral recovery. You see, the brain requires an intense level of glucose. Glucose, a primary and absolute necessity for regenerating, accelerating, expanding brain functionality.
The human brain is biologically hardwired to run on glucose, specifically glucose derived from plant-based carbohydrates. This is not a preference. It is a physiological imperative encoded in our DNA. Glucose is the brain's primary and preferred fuel source, powering everything from memory and learning to mood regulation and decision-making. The brain consumes roughly 20% of the body's total energy, despite weighing only about 2% of total body mass, and nearly all of that energy comes from glucose. Why plant-based glucose? Carbohydrates from whole plant foods like fruits, vegetables, legumes, and whole grains, raw and living, of course, deliver glucose in its cleanest, most bioavailable form. These sources also come packaged with fiber, antioxidants, and micronutrients that support stable blood sugar and long-term cognitive health. Unlike refined sugars or animal-based fats, plant-based glucose offers a steady release of energy, avoiding the spikes and crashes that impair brain function. Quote, "The brain receives energy signals from one's consumption. Keep in mind that consumption is mental, physical, and spiritual." End of quote. Page 58. The Holistic Living Truth About Supreme Love, Resurrecting Divine Spirit Consciousness by High Priest Kwatamani.
No question about it. Consumption is mental, physical, and spiritual. The big mistake that is made is that one ignores the kind of detoxing and purging to heal that is a necessity. We overlook the various levels and degrees of trauma that has been encoded in one's subconsciousness. We ignore the fact that those who one associate with has also been adversely affected by traumatizing attitudes, values, behaviors, and beliefs. We ignore the fact that one has been encoded with a belief system that stands totally opposed to divine social, economic, family, communal order. When we reach that holistic living state of thinking and reasoning, it becomes very clear that we must address all of those things that have influenced us by parents and foreparents and foreparents. And we cannot possibly begin to think that because we eat a beautiful raw salad or any of the other fresh and wholesome nutrient factors from the tree of life, that will be enough in and of its own. We must come to the realization that one will have to practice the principles, discipline, and order of detoxing, addressing those issues, and definitely need some kind and type of ancestral eldership, guidance, and protection. Otherwise, one will crash. We're talking about detoxing, purging, and healing, a nature of energy that has created massive trauma, and that all it takes is a trigger. You see, the program is simply to say God, and that makes it righteous regardless of the attitude, value, behaviors of that being. Something has happened, a second Genesis nature of energy, and that nature of energy has cast a spell over man, he and she, keeping them locked into a lower and lesser state of disorder. Remember this. It is not the name of the God, the deity that you call upon, but rather the nature of energy that one consumes. What happens if you have been taught the principles of macho masculine energy as your religious base, root, and foundation? What happened if you have been taught the ideology that it is the feminine who is the root of all evil, that she is the birthplace of sin? What happens when you come to realize that that is absolutely correct? She is the root of all evil that has been ejaculated into her, and she is the birthplace of sin that has been perpetuated in thoughts, reasonings, and actions affecting her attitude, value, behavior, and belief, because she is, by her nature, a nurturer. And as a nurturer, she is, in fact, communal, the first teacher, and she is the birthplace. And if we do not get a reestablishment of divine order within the sacred ancestral feminine she, I'm going to tell you very straight, it's all over but the shout. And we won't even get a chance to hear the shout, because you're birthed in the womb of the ancestral mother spirit. And if she continues to be demoralized, if she continues to be demonized, pushed into a consciousness of worshiping, a deification that totally opposes her existence as the feminine she, the mother spirit, what's happening is we're perpetuating the greatest level and degree of disorder that could ever manifest upon this earth. And this is what is going on, because the macho masculine nature of the warlord syndrome that came and saw and conquered continue to want to be glorified, forgetting that he is born out of the womb of the feminine she. And then he ejaculate the toxicity of his overbloated, narcissistic mindset back into her womb. And this continues over and over and over and over again and again in every offspring coming out of that scenario, be it by rape, be it by force, coercion, or sweet words of nothingness. It continues to perpetuate a kind of toxicity that actually must be rooted out if we are going to recover. Let us take a review of that nature forwarded from those who have been declared as the cradle of Western civilization.
Ancient Greece, the birthplace of Western civilization.
Around 700 BCE, Hesiod wrote one of the oldest surviving stories from ancient Greece, telling of their origin, genealogy of their gods, and the nature of masculine energy that guided and protected their social order. Hesiod tells us that the first female, Pandora, was crafted as a, quote, gigantic evil, intentionally designed to unleash hardships upon humanity. Zeus, the chief Greek god, created Pandora out of anger and revenge, unleashing a curse. As a wedding gift, Zeus presented Pandora with a jar containing all the evils known to mankind: misery, strife, disease, toil, and every other affliction. Pandora opened the jar, allowing the contents to escape and spread immense suffering throughout humanity. Zeus intended for humanity to be unable to overcome the evils released, so he caused Pandora to close the lid before hope could escape. Quote, according to Plato, dated 427 to 347 BCE, women came about through a physical degeneration of the human being. Quote, it is only males who are created directly by the gods and are given souls. Those who live rightly return to the stars, but those who are cowards or lead unrighteous lives may with reason be supposed to have changed into the nature of women in the second generation. End of quote.
Wow. Now that's a real mother for you to reason with about that hunting, herding, warring, nomadic, tribal concepts of life. There's no ands, ifs, and buts about it. This expression is nothing less than the epitome of macho male energy, focused on glorifying his personal concept of supremacy, forgetting that if everything began from males, somebody had to have a mama, or there would be absolutely nothing, zero upon this planet. If we don't get these kinds of things clear, that's exactly where humanity is going. Remember this, according to the second Genesis reality, man, he and she, was led out of the sacred garden culture from which we come, and then strategically blocked from consuming from the fruits of the tree of life. Listen well.
And the Lord God caused a deep sleep to fall upon Adam, and he slept. And he took one of his ribs, and closed up the flesh instead thereof. And the rib, which the Lord God had taken from man, made he a woman, and brought her unto the man. And the woman said unto the serpent, We may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God hath said, Ye shall not eat of it, nor shall ye touch it, lest ye die. And the serpent said unto the woman, Ye shall not surely die, for God doth know that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. And the Lord God called unto Adam, and said unto him, Where art thou? And he said, I heard thy voice in the garden, and I was afraid, because I was naked, and I hid myself. And he said, Who told thee that thou wast naked? Hast thou eaten of the tree whereof I commanded thee that thou shouldest not eat? And the man said, The woman whom thou gavest to be with me, she gave me of the tree, and I did eat. The Lord God, he cursed the serpent, and then he cursed the woman. Unto the woman he said, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow and thy conception. In sorrow thou shalt bring forth children. And unto Adam he said, Because thou hast hearkened unto the voice of thy wife, and hast eaten of the tree of which I commanded thee, saying, Thou shalt not eat of it, cursed is the ground for thy sake. Unto Adam also and to his wife did the Lord God make coats of skins, and clothed them. And the Lord God said, Behold, the man is become as one of us to know good and evil. And now, lest he put forth his hand, and take also of the tree of life, and eat and live forever. So he drove out the man, and he placed at the east of the Garden of Eden cherubims, and a flaming sword which turned every way to keep the way of the tree of life. And Abel was a keeper of sheep, but Cain was a tiller of the ground. And in process of time it came to pass that Cain brought of the fruit of the ground an offering unto the Lord. And Abel, he also brought of the firstlings of his flock, and of the fat thereof. And the Lord had respect unto Abel and to his offering, but unto Cain and to his offering he had not respect. And Adam knew his wife again, and she bare a son, and called his name Seth.
There's some deep-seated programs that we must let go, and we don't have any time to waste anymore. Listen well. The time has come to break the curse of that toxic parallel spell.
Who would orchestrate truth to deceive anyone who would come to believe the 666 alliance about Adam and Eve? And the 666 God said, in the beginning was the Word. And there be a declaration of war against the keepers of the word. And in truth and reality, the keepers of the words were the keeper, the most supreme truth, far beyond the syllables of the word. And the keepers of supreme truth, far beyond the word, was raided, invaded, murdered, raped, and slaved. and the word was stolen, and the truth was reversed, and the word become deception, and deception become the word. And this is exactly what Adam and Eve heard. And one will be seen as evil, always ready to follow disorder, leading man into temptation, profiled as the devil's daughter. And one will be cursed to give birth in toil and suffering pains upon the earth. You see, here before the thing was man-made, and Eve was born out of Adam's rib cage. Oh yes, let us not forget, they were led out of the sacred garden culture and into a culture of war and crime. And they will learn to hunt and herd and slaughter and kill. Flesh and blood is how they would die. What kind of God is this that would declare this opposite energy culture as divine, choosing of the slaughter and the burnt flesh of death instead of the fruits of the trees of life, and declaring this burnt offering as this first choice way to die? Who betrayed the garden culture, Abel or Cain? Who declared a burnt offering in the God's name? What kind of energy is the possessor of this God? And what is the worship of the folks who declared Brother Cain a scapegoat?
To be continued in Part 4 of Prophecy AD 2027.